Greetings and welcome to Maisha Kazini. So in the last few videos, I've been trying to understand what is happening in Kenya through the perspective of work, knowledge, and the generations. So about 3 videos ago, I said that the problem we have is that there's a difference in knowledge between the generations. Unfortunately, the Gen Xs have been educated in such a narrow vision of the world, and so they are not understanding when Gen Zs can see it for what it is and are saying that this is not working. And then in the last video, I talked about talent, and I said talent is not enough for it to become skill that benefits society. It has to also interact with knowledge and work. So in this video, I want to combine those two ideas to talk about the issues that are facing us as a society today. So this is what I was saying in my video on talent, that then the social cycle of the human being is this. We start with inspirational ideas or talent when we are younger. We gain knowledge either through education or interactions, conversations, experience that helps us refine and develop our talent. And then when we feel we are at a certain age that we can put our talent to service of society, we start to work. And that work is based on our talent and our knowledge. And through work, we become skilled and we become experts because of the work that we have done. Every generation has to go through this. So each incoming generation starts the same process over again. And our job as the older ones is to mentor and model the way they should live. So if we think about it in terms of Gen X and Gen Z, this is what should be happening. We, the Gen X, should be here at the skill place. We should now be developing our skill, talking about what are the problems in the system, thinking of different ways to solve it, thinking of things that we should aspire for as a society. And then Gen Zs are supposed to be coming into work because they already have the inspiration. Actually, they do. They have the talent. They have gained the knowledge. And now what they're asking for is to enter the system to work. And then if that functions, if that was to function properly, the Gen Alphas would come in and be gaining knowledge. So if the present moment we are at is where Gen X are skilled, Gen Z are working, and Gen Alpha are learning and building their knowledge, that is now the sign of a healthy society, that each generation is at the stage it's supposed to be. And actually, we are supposed to model for the next for the incoming generation what they should be. Now, what is actually happening right now as we speak? Our skill has been blocked. If our skill as elders has been blocked, what does that mean? It means that we are still working like millennials. We have not grown up. And I can give many examples. We've talked about this a lot, especially with Mordecai Ogada. We've talked about it on this channel. And the example he gave in the first conversation we had was the example of Professor Magoha, who was an acclaimed and accomplished surgeon. But during COVID, he was serving under the hopeless CBC system, which introduced a new layer of schools which we could not afford. So now he was the one going around the country making sure that the buildings are being built and insulting principals for not picking up the litter in schools. And meanwhile, the Minister of Health during the COVID pandemic was a PR consultant. So what happened was that really Magoha was doing work that was unbefitting of a surgeon of his rank. He should have been talking about the bigger health questions, talking about the next generation of surgeons, but what was he doing? Inspecting schools. I can also mention the example of Dr. Kioko Mangeli, who was, I think he was at Kenya Bureau of Standards or somewhere. And there was a shipment of maize that was coming in that had aflatoxin. And he said this thing should not be used in Kenya. It should not be consumed in Kenya because it will make us sick. And he was fought against by a whole battalion of politicians. I'll share the link to the article below. He was fought by a whole battalion of politicians who didn't care for the health of Kenyans. What they cared for was money and tenders. Can you imagine what that does to somebody? Here you are doing your work to the best that you can, trying to serve society, and the people who are blocking you are saying, no, your skill doesn't matter. What matters is the money we will get. Let me just come closer to home with CBC. Imagine after many years of us teaching and some of us researching on what the problem is with our education system, we were told, oh no, we don't need your knowledge. We now have a new system. Do you know what that does to us? It means that now, I am working like a millennial, for real. Because now I am being trained. Imagine me. I am being trained to work in a new system with ideas which I know to be wrong by people who don't have as much experience as mine. Now that's where I am. I'm working like a millennial. And those resources, which could have been used by not printing more textbooks, by not paying per diems for people to go around the country doing God knows what. Now, money is being used for consultancies and training. All that is energy and resources that could have been used to employ the next generation of teachers. And those teachers, as they come into the system, now they'll find people like us who tell them, yeah, the system is cruel like this, but we can modify it. It doesn't have to be this way. Let me show you how. And in fact, we have teachers who could have done that for us. Priscilla Were, may God rest her soul, was one of those teachers. One of those teachers who was saying we need to humanize our education system. But no, we are not listening to that. We are changing the system and getting other people to come and train us how to do it. People like Christopher Kaemba. These are resources that we could have used to say, how can we make our education institutions kinder and less violent? How can we see new ways of doing things? But no, we've been forced to work like millennials, and now millennials cannot be employed in the system. So if our skill is being denied, and we are working like millennials, how are millennials going to enter the system? How are they going to find work? I am doing their work because I have been told my skill doesn't matter. So that's where we are stuck. And that's what Gen Zs are protesting against. And the other thing is, I realized that when I went for the Lean Goge show and I was talking about mentorship, I hadn't quite understood why it sounded so odd to me for young people to come and ask me for mentorship. It's because they are not in the system working. If you have a working system, and I'm now a skilled person who can share my expertise, the millennials who are coming to the system are the ones I am mentoring. But you see, because they are not working, they have to ask us for mentorship separate from outside. And then I'm wondering, I'm just working. Why are you asking me for mentorship? You should be just doing the work. Now I understand that actually the reason why millennials and Gen Zs are asking for mentorship is because they have no work. If they were working, I would simply be mentoring people who I'm working with. I would be mentoring the people who I am teaching with. It would be automatic, but now that process is not automatic anymore because Gen Zs cannot find work. And that's how to understand the protests. The protests are really not even just about Ruto must go and about employment. It's Gen Z saying the cycle of life has stagnated. we cannot find work. And they cannot find work because we, the people of skill, are occupying their place. Instead of mentoring, we are being made to do the work they should be doing. If that is the case, the best way for us to help Gen Zs is to start saying, we want our skill to matter. We have to insist that our skill matters, and we want that skill to be used in our conversations about where Kenya is going and what is happening. But now what has happened, somebody like me, I'm sick and tired of the mainstream media, because the mainstream media is still keeping me at the question of work, treating me like a teacher, as if I have no expertise. I've just said I can't talk to them anymore. It's dehumanizing. But also what has happened now is that us Gen Xs, who should be using our expertise, we've been forced to go on social media because our institutions can't absorb us anymore. They can't absorb our knowledge anymore. The education system doesn't have a place for people like me, or Priscilla Were, or Christopher Kaemba. We are stuck at working like we are millennials, like we have no experience. So now somebody like me, I came to social media because I said, I cannot keep on working like this. We cannot have an education system where nothing makes sense, where history doesn't make sense. We are still teaching using the philosophies of Wazungu a century ago. How is that possible? But because I've been ignored, I've had to come to the public space. Then when I come to social media, what do I find? The same politicians creating this system to block me from using my expertise have now paid bots to insult me. I mean, Kenyans, just think of it. Is this how we want to be using expertise of people like me, responding to bots, saying silliness and nonsense? Until now, I am fighting with a 25-year-old or 20-year-old on social media. Is that a normal society? It's not normal. Think of it even in the village. Would you expect the elders of the village to be squabbling with young people? It's such a misuse of expertise. But that's where we are. We are being forced to squabble with people who are not being allowed to work. That's the mess we are in. So we, the Gen Xs, need to start saying, no, our expertise matters and we want it to matter. We need to get together and start saying what we know should matter. We cannot fight like Gen Zs. And actually, they don't need us to fight like them. We need to fight like Gen Xs and start saying we want our knowledge to matter in this system. And this stupidity of saying that our knowledge is theory, that if we are confident in our views, it's because we are proud. You see, that's the other thing with the Kenya education system. Because it tells us so much that what is not immediate is not valuable. Now they don't see that our skill comes from work. I am not talking because I went to school. I am talking because I have worked. I have worked for many years. I have seen things. I have consulted. I have talked with people. So when I am coming to offer my opinion, it's not coming from nowhere. It's coming from work. And work facilitated by Kenya. So Kenya actually should be saying, okay, where did you get this knowledge from? Why are you saying the things you're saying? Instead, what is happening, I'm being told to shut up because I am proud. And we say that because we don't see anything beyond the body and morality. So if somebody knows something we don't know, we say, oh, it's because they are showing off. We can't see the work, the knowledge, and the skill behind what they are saying. So we Gen Xs, we need to fight for that space. We need to fight for a space where our expertise matters. And we should not listen to people telling us, oh, it's just theory. No, we did work to get here where we know what we know. But many of us, sorry to say, we believed that theory about knowledge being useless unless it's immediate. So actually, we have to go back to the books and we have to go back to conversations and start learning again. Because at this stage in life, we should be talking about bigger issues. Who is society? And I said this about 3 years ago, and I'll share the link below. I said this 3 years ago. We elders need to start asking the question of elders. And if we can't ask them, we need to learn how to ask them. But we cannot still be talking about solutions. That's not our job. We should be talking about the bigger question. What should we be? What should we value? And how can we get there? The question of solutions, we've graduated. That's not our job. It's not our job to ask that question. And you see, this problem has even material consequences. Like Darius Okola was saying in my conversation with him, he said that many of us elders can't retire right now because the economy has stopped growing. If some of us will still have children in school by the time we retire. And in fact, he was saying, for most people, by the time a year has passed after retirement, they have to go back to work because their money has run out. But this government cannot even understand that concept. Imagine, I've even heard people telling stories of trying to help their parents access their pension. When they go for the pension, the bureaucrat there who has been infected with the Gen X disease, the bureaucrat starts saying, hey, if you want that money, you have to leave some with me. And this bureaucrat is not understanding. One, I have 30 more years to live, God willing, about 30 more years to live. As an older person, I'm likely to need more medical care. And number 3, we don't get health insurance. The health insurances are not taking care of older people. So we don't have cover. And then some kid is telling us that, oh, this 600,000 is so much. And yet that is money you spend on one ICU. I mean, these people are so rotten. They cannot think. Somebody is saying my paycheck is 600,000 and thinking, oh my God, what a lot of money. But that is one ICU bill or 2. And I have no insurance like you who is asking me for this bribe. That's how decadent government is. They can't think beyond their noses. So this problem has a very material consequence. Because if the economy is not growing, it means our pensions are becoming more useless, which means we have to go back to work and compete again with millennials who have no work. Imagine, people, this is not sustainable if we are not being allowed to use our skills. And the generation after us is not being allowed to work. Then what will happen to Gen Alpha is that they will not be able to get knowledge. And actually, that process has started with CBC. CBC has said that our children don't need knowledge, only skill. What they need is talent to go, and where they'll develop it is neither here nor there. But clearly now we are seeing they are expected to go abroad to go and develop that talent. So we have said we are not providing work. We're not providing knowledge. So you just have talent, and when you're 18, go and look for work somewhere else. That is where we are. That's what CBC is. So it's like we are a society that is eating itself. And what we are staring at is a society in decay. Because it means there's a ceiling and we are not moving beyond it. What is going to happen? What is happening is that we are rotting. We are decaying from the inside. Because the elders can't be elders, the young people can't work, and the children can't learn. That's insanity. But we need to understand that this is not a natural phenomenon. This is what we call imperialism. Imperialism is a system that blocks human growth, period. And we are even seeing it in the West, actually. Look at the US, where it is. They can't solve their social problems. They are creating wars and supporting wars everywhere. Meanwhile, their people cannot get healthcare. Their children are not getting a proper education. Now they're even shooting their own children. That's where the madness is in the US. In Europe, this rise of far right, it's the same thing. Because you know what European politicians did? They said, we are not going to allow European workers to become knowledgeable and skilled because they're going to ask for more money and we don't want to give it to them. So what are we going to do? We are going to stop letting industries grow and we are going to export them everywhere. And in those other countries, we will also create war so that desperate refugees can come now as immigrants and do the work we don't want our European workers to do. But instead of Europeans dealing with this system of which blocks growth, what are they doing? They are blaming us. They are saying the problem is us. That's how decadent the West is. So we need to recognize that this is a system. And if any preacher is listening to me or a Christian is listening to me, please, 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 I'm not talking about sin and fallen man. This is not a sin and fallen man problem. This is a system. It's a golden calf. It's a golden calf that has extracted gold from everywhere, smelted it and built an idol and forced people to worship. That's what it is. This is a golden calf. It's not human frailty. So don't start telling us, oh, human beings are fallen creatures. No, this is not human beings, fallen creatures nonsense. This is a golden calf that needs to be brought down and destroyed because it can be. We need to understand imperialism as a parasite and humanity as separate. So what imperialism is doing is extracting life, energy, wealth, community. It's extracting them from our humanity. That's what is happening. It's separate from us. Human beings naturally are caring people. We work, we grow, we create, we love one another. That's human. That's what human beings do. But what imperialism does is to destroy that ability of us to do that. And they use that energy and labor and wealth that they extract from us to become bigger. But you see, as it becomes bigger, humanity is shrinking. And this is the irony. The human beings in this imperial system, they can't understand that they are destroying society. So we are dealing with very sick people, very sick people who don't understand that they are destroying humanity. You even wonder, if humanity is destroyed, where do you want to go? But they are too sick to understand it. Too sick. Their job is to make us stay in a perpetual childhood, where older people are not becoming elders, young people are not becoming adults and parents, and children are not becoming adults. That's imperialism in a nutshell. Even before we start talking about, oh, minerals, oh, colonialism, fundamentally, that's what imperialism is. It's a system of stunting human beings. And as you can see, as it stunts us, humanity starts to shrink as imperialism grows bigger. So what we need to do is to restore humanity and get rid of this parasite. How do we do it? Normally, we've been talking about the problem of imperialism like a predator, like this predator that comes and humanity is separate and the predator keeps coming. That's not what our problem is. What we have is a parasite. A parasite is an organism that keeps extracting from us until we shrink and shrink and shrink. And what imperialism is a system that keeps us from growing, that keeps us in perpetual childhood. And that's why you find the American government often sounding very childish, kicking tantrums when they don't get what they want. That's what imperialism does to people. It prevents us from growing older. It prevents the elders from becoming elders. It prevents the adults from becoming parents and adults, and it prevents children from learning. That's imperialism for you. All these other things which people like to say, culture, minerals, what, that is the symptom of it. The real issue about why they're able to do this thing is because they stunt our growth and they prevent us from saying, no, if you have a mine here, it's going to affect the environment here, which is going to affect women here and childbirth. They don't want us to do that. They want us to remain perpetually childish. And actually, what the finance bill was this. It was saying imperialism tentacles need to go deeper and penetrate into Kenyan society so that we extract even more and more than what we were extracting before. That's what the finance bill was. And what Gen Zs did was a convulsion. It was an organism saying, I can't take this anymore. I can't give anything more. That's how the body reacts when there's something that is eating it up. It starts to convulse. That's what the Gen Z protests are. It's a convulsion of a Kenyan society that is sick because we have a parasitic government that cannot produce and is just digging its tentacles deeper and deeper into Kenyan society. So how do we deal with this parasite? Because, as you can see, if we just cut off the parasite from the place outside of our bodies, we will leave the tentacles, and the tentacles could make us sicker. So we need to remove not just the parasite, but the tentacles that are in us. So how do we do it? I asked Dr. Simon Kigondu of the Kenya Medical Association, what is the medical way in which parasites are treated? And he said, you need to do two things. Before you cut off the parasite, you have to make sure that the tentacles are out of the organism. So you either find a medicine that can shrink the organism, or you have a radical surgery. So we need to shrink these tentacles. So what Gen Zs are doing really is a radical surgery. And we Gen X, we need to support them by healing humanity and giving humanity the medicine, giving Kenyan society the medicine that can make those tentacles shrink. But instead, what we are doing is instructing Gen Zs on how to do their surgery. No, that's not our job. Our job is to heal humanity, to heal the human aspects of Kenyan society so that we can be able to reject these tentacles of stupidity, of exploitation that are making our society shrink and shrink and shrink. We, the Gen Xs, should be providing the healing through memory, through history, through encouragement, so that our society becomes stronger and stronger and is able to expel these tentacles of the government from our society, which Gen Zs are trying to also remove through radical surgery. We complement each other. We need to complement what Gen Zs are doing, not instruct them on how to do what they are doing. And imagine this is what I said. I said this 3 years ago. I said the questions which Gen Zs are asking about the economy and employment, those are not our questions. Our questions should be about society. Who are we and what do we value? And how do we get there? That's what we should be talking about, so that we can say, enyewe, what Gen Zs are doing is a radical surgery for a society that is going to die. That's what we should be saying, not telling Gen Zs how to do their business. They're doing it fine. They're okay. Together, we can work in a way that we are able to expel this organism from our body so that now we can become healthy. This is my message to Gen X. It's not our place to ask Gen Zs what next. The question of what next is actually our question. And what we need to be asking is a question, how did we get here? The questions we need to be asking are about the larger society, not even how to fix this problem, but saying, how did we get here? Who should society be? And what do we need to do to get there? Like, one of the issues that we really need to answer for ourselves is, how did we accept this evil idea that money is everything, that we cannot discuss anything if we are not offering a solution, and that we cannot talk about anything beyond the personalities who raised it. We need to ask ourselves very seriously why we created a system like that. Even the church should not be going around saying, oh, we support Gen Zs, go and represent us in character and whatever. That's not our work. Our work is to be asking those deeper questions. How did Kenya become so greedy and so tasteless and humanless? But you see, for the church to answer that question, they also have to talk about it within themselves. What is this about churches that you feel that you have to build a project, have a school, have a road, and yet we are paying taxes for those things? Can we have a theology where we don't have to raise money to feel relevant? That's the mature Gen X work that we should be doing. And instead, we are correcting Gen Zs. We are telling them how to behave. And let me also say, as an educator and as an elder, CBC has to go. It has to go. It is not the correct education for us. It is a system whose philosophy is built on a century-old idea about Africans. It is a system that has no ambition for our children. It's instead limiting them to what they can do with their hands. This is not a system we should have. And I don't care whether Kenya removes it or not. I've done my work as an elder and I've said it has to go. And I'm doing this because when Gen Alphas leave the system and start graduating, they will want to know. And I'm not going to be one of those people who will say, I didn't do anything because nobody listened to me. They will find my words. And I also want to say this idea of a work-ready graduate is rubbish. It's utter rubbish because, as I've been saying the last few videos, there is no skill that can grow on talent alone. It needs knowledge and it needs work. And we shouldn't have been trying to solve the work problem with changing the curriculum. We should have been asking, why is the economy not growing? But instead, what we were offered is to blame our unemployment on the lack of skills of students. And yet, for them to develop skills, they need to be working. They cannot develop skills in the school system. I'm sorry, that cannot happen. It has to happen in the workplace. But the media persisted with this stupid, childish question. For 3 years, I was still being asked about 844. And that's the other thing we need to say, that the media is part of this system of keeping us childish. If you can ask the same question for 3 years, despite all the answers you get, is that not a sign that you're not growing up, that you're remaining childish? And you see, even now with the Gen Zs, they've stuck at what's next. They have no other question. So we, the elders, have to recognize that the media is not going to help this country. They are stuck in the childishness of imperialism. They are just as bad as the government. So we Gen Xs, we need to grow up. We need to step up and be elders. And I want to say this to Gen Zs. Poleni sana. Poleni sana, we have not done right for the next generation. We were too stupid trying not to be theoretical, trying to avoid looking proud. We were so myopic, we decided we're not answering the questions we should be answering. So if we ask you, my generation, if we ask you what next, you should throw the question back to us and ask us what next. Given that now, the system which we are defending is not working. See, it's us to say what next. It's not the Gen Zs, it's us. And the other question which us Gen Xs should not be asking, at least in my opinion, is what government should do. Me, I've moved on. I'm no longer asking what the government should do. We should be asking what society should be. Because the period when I was asking the question, what should government do? What was happening? I was being shut down and asked how that is a solution. So I started to wonder, how is it when I'm suggesting things that could be done, which are very simple things, people don't want to hear? So now that's where I am. I'm asking, why are we not listening? This question, what government should do? No, that's not my question. I've moved on. I don't care. I don't care what government should do because it's none of my business. Clearly, they don't think that we matter. So if I'm starting to ask, if I'm still asking what the government should do, and they don't care what I think, then my next question has to be, why are they not listening to me? What kind of society do we have when we are ruled by people who can't hear what they are saying? And most of all, what is wrong with those people? And me, I think they are not okay. You cannot be in a parasitic system and ignore that you're going to finish this society if you continue behaving like that. That's not somebody who is okay. So me, I don't care what government should do. It's a parasite. Me, what my interest is how do we strengthen society to get rid of this parasite? That's my interest. I moved on from what should the government do. And I'm not interested in correcting government. I'm not interested in who holds seats where and where. I don't care. Because our problem is bigger than that. Our problem is, why are we as society so vulnerable to these parasites? What is it that is compromising the health of our society that is putting us in this situation? That's where I am. And I'm inviting Gen X's to be there with me. Please, let's move on from what should the government do. Let the Gen Z sort that out, and they're doing actually a very good job. They're answering the question. So us, we need to be the elders. We need to move on and ask the bigger questions of what kind of society we want and how we can make our society stronger against this parasiticism from the government. And no, I am not talking about return to African culture and the way our so-called elders have been being misused by the politicians. You cannot have politicians disrespecting elders like that, behaving like buffoons because they are going to get endorsement from so-called elders. We need to refuse. We need to refuse and start putting our foot down and saying, if eldership is to be respected, it means that the society needs to take elders seriously and answer the questions about society, not about solutions, what government should do, and all that nonsense that the media is making us stay in. And that's why I've stopped going to mainstream media. I can't answer those childish questions anymore. It's a waste of my time. And I hope we Gen Xs can find the place and the forum to start being elders and ask pertinent questions about society. Society is bigger than the government. We need to ask, how do we make a healthy society that is not infected with this parasite that is reducing the opportunities for our young people and for our children? And we need to understand that what we are experiencing now, what Gen Zs are doing, is a convulsion of the whole organism. It's not a protest of Gen Zs alone. It's the whole body of Kenyan society that is convulsing because we can't take this exploitation from these parasites anymore. So while they're doing the radical surgery of trying to get this parasiticism out, us, we need to do the healing work of trying to boost the immunity of our society to parasites like these and start being a society that is loving, that is caring, and that allows people to mature and contribute to society through whatever talent, learning, work, and skill that they have.